Hey, hi, hi. So I was writing these notes today, or script, whatever you want to call it, in the kitchen because my husband was, fixing our garbage disposal. He was replacing it. It seized up. We don't know what happened. It just decided it wasn't going to work anymore. So I thought, oh, I'll sit with him. And at one point, I look up from doing my notes, and this man is just laughing to himself. And I'm like, what is going on? He's like, I forgot to turn the power off. That might not, for some people, you'd be like, okay, you didn't plug it in. No, 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 no. Our house is so old that there's no plug. You have to hardwire it in. I don't know how close this man came to electrocuting himself, but like, I don't want to know. He's so handy. He truly is, but he's also really forgetful, so I have to sit with him to make sure he doesn't hurt himself. But that does mean that there are random points in this episode and the next one where he just said things and I was like, I'm going to include that. So you're going to get just random little bits of husband's not even inner monologue because he said it out loud. So that'll be fun. Hi, if you're new here, my name's Cozy. I like to snark about sister-wife related reality television shows here on YouTube. I do like to remind you these videos are for entertainment purposes only. These aren't facts, they're just opinions about public figures who share their lives on television. So if we're cool, we're cool. All right. So family by family as always, we're gonna hop in with the Davis family. So the ladies of the Davis family are off to meet a new woman, and when April introduces the idea on the couch, Danielle kind of looks like she would rather be anywhere else. They already have dating profiles active again and have found Jasmine. Danielle says that Jasmine seems very spunky and cute. She's already very different from the other lady. She's got this dark hair and piercings that no one else has. It's actually, it's strikingly different when you compare the three blondes with Jasmine. But April reminds us that the women take the lead and they meet the women before Nick ever does. So Danielle says it's still really scary because she's likely going to be legally married to whoever they choose. But she's like, now I can look at it from the wife's standpoint with April and Jennifer, as opposed to looking at it from the girlfriend standpoint. But she's still learning the ropes. So they greet Jasmine, everyone gives these hugs, and Jennifer says that she could just tell from the color of Jasmine's dress, which was like a bright lime green, that she is not a shy person. And that's great. Jennifer really loves the fact that she's definitely not shy, she's very bold. So they settle into chat at one of the tables, and Jasmine introduces herself and lets us know that she's 30 and looking for a situation similar to this one. She thinks it's a great opportunity to make some mom friends and have a stable environment for her son. So they sit down with a large Jenga game, like a giant Jenga game, at one of the tables, and April's like, for every block that gets taken out and put on top, let's just ask questions. You can ask questions of any of us. We're going to ask questions to you, which seems like a really fair way to do it. It kind of keeps the conversation flowing and gives people kind of a sort of chance to stop and think for a second. It It's a little odd, though, that April says she really wants Danielle to be in the driver's seat on this. I mean, it's kind of difficult for Danielle to take over and ask these tough questions when, A, she's still really kind of not sure about all of this, but B, she's never done this before. She probably isn't going to have a lot of idea of exactly what she should be doing. So it would have been nice for April or Jennifer to sort of start things off and give her sort of a sense of where to go from here, if that makes sense. But she does jump in to her credit, and she's like, okay, have you ever been in a polygamous relationship before? Great question. That's a good way to start things off, I suppose. And Jasmine says she's been interested in it, but never dove in head first. But she wants to know what drew the ladies to this life. And Jennifer says it's completely the sense of security. She feels safe, and she feels like she can thrive in this group. So she turns it around and asks Jasmine, what are your pet peeves? And she says repetition. And as she explained that her 11-year-old son will just sing the same line over and over of a song, I felt that in my soul. My son just turned 11, and he does this thing where he will say something in a goofy voice. And if he doesn't get enough of a reaction, when he says it, he will do it over and over and over until I finally make him stop because I just can't take it. I don't know if it's something about this age group or what it is, but like, kiddo, if it wasn't funny the first time, it is not going to be funny the 13th time. So I get that pet peeve. But Danielle asks Jasmine, what do you think about having more kids? And she's like, oh, I love being pregnant. And so she is willing to populate the entire next generation if that's what it takes. Go off. Pregnancy is not my favorite part. Tiny humans, I love my babies, but no thank you. But Danielle's really pleased because she grew up in a large family and envisions way more siblings for Will and Vera, but not like a cheaper by the dozen situation. But sweetheart, the more women you add, the more children you're going to be anticipating. So if you keep adding more people, unless you put a limitation on you only get one, you're going to get a big family. But it also really wouldn't be cheaper by the dozen because that woman had all of those kids herself, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I've read that book, but I remember really liking it. So I've done pregnancy twice with 3 kids to show for it. So those of you who might not know, I have twins and a singleton. So I've done pregnancy twice, have 3 kids to show for it. Unless we surprise have another one, I think I've hit my limit, but 4 would definitely be it. No more. I'm the oldest of 4. I think that's a pretty reasonable number. But Danielle asked Jasmine about, what do you think about sharing a bed with 4 people? And she's like, oh, I'm fine, but I hog the covers. So you wouldn't want to put me all the way at the end because I'll just roll up into him like a burrito and nobody's getting anything. I feel it in my soul. I am a blanket burrito kind of girl. Husband thinks that I've gotten better, and he claims that he watches these videos. So we're going to find out if husband's actually watching them. I'm going to tell him something that maybe he doesn't realize. I have not gotten better, sweetheart. I just tuck the blankets in at the end of the bed with this new bed frame so that I can't pull them as far, and you think that I've just, like, learned how to stop doing that. I just want to test a theory. It is true that that's what I've started doing because I have stolen all the blankets and left him with nothing, and it gets cold sometimes. But they let her know in their house that the women work, Nick stays home, and Jennifer's like, hey, you know, people are often raised in a wolf pack environment, but mine was more like a lion pride, where the women went out to work and the men stayed home. Her dad worked nights, so he was home with the kids during the day, while her mother, who was the primary breadwinner, was off working in the daytime. And she felt like that seemed kind of how things should be. My husband has worked nights, and I would say having him here when things go bump in the night, definitely, I prefer that. But whatever works for different families works for different families. So Jasmine asked the next question, and that's, what is the hardest part of this relationship? Danielle's like, sometimes, she's like, you can't be complacent. You have to be willing to take backstage to other opinions sometimes. That felt a little pointed, because obviously the opinion she's currently taking a backseat to is dating at all. So to say that to Jasmine, I don't think the other women caught it, because they don't realize how far in the back Danielle is sitting. But yeah, I think that might have been a little bit of it. They talk about jealousy, and Jasmine's like, I'm pretty mellow. I don't really have much to be jealous about. Danielle's super skeptical about how agreeable Jasmine's being. Like, is this a red flag? Is she just saying what we want to hear? Does she really mean it? And I can understand that, because everything they've said so far, she has been very open and agreeable to. There are 2 options here. Either A, this is really something she's been thinking about and considering, and so she is truly this open and agreeable to things because this is a dynamic she wants to pursue. Or B, she is giving the representative and putting her best foot forward so that they can meet outside world Jasmine before they meet inside world Jasmine, if that makes sense. But April asked how Jasmine would feel about them sending her on a date with Nick, and she's like, yeah, that would be great. These ladies are great. As it's time to go, Jasmine needs to head to work, and she says the chemistry's great and she is optimistic. She's like, if he is anything like the women he keeps, they would hit it off and be just fine. Wives discuss how everyone's feeling, and they call out Danielle, and she's like, I feel good. It's going to be a change. April says she feels like the date went super well, and she's really, really likes Jasmine from what they know so far. April also worries if Jasmine's a little bit too agreeable or hiding something similar to Danielle, but she's like, my biggest concern is Danielle. I don't think that's the case. Sorry, April. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, can't get fooled again. I don't remember what it is. It's one of my favorite things to think about occasionally. But they think that Nick would really like Jasmine, and they don't want to lose Danielle in the process, so we're just going to sort this out. So we get back to the house. Nick lets us know that the women went on a date with Jasmine, and he's only seen pictures of her, but his eyes were definitely pleased. I have no idea what it is about the way that Nick talks, but something about it actually kind of grinds my gears. I can't quite figure it out. I can't figure out if it's using too many words to convey a simple thing. You could have just said she's very pretty. I don't know. It bothers me. And I can't figure it out. I try, but these turn of phrases that he used sometimes, I don't know, they just hit my ear wrong. But he explains to us again how the dating works in their world, and blah, 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 blah. The women are of the most important relationship, blah, 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 blah. The ladies share with Nick that this date was super fun. They were really excited, and that they think that Nick would really like Jasmine and describe all of her best qualities. And April's like, I'm going to take Vera, go lay her down. And I'm not sure why we included that. It almost felt like she was going to give Nick some space with Danielle, but then in the next scene, she's right back there again. But April does tell us that she's worried about these beginning stages, because it can be a really good feeling when you're the shiny new potential sister wife. But that transition to sister wife can be really difficult sometimes. So Nick was like, were you able to really tell Jasmine about our lifestyle and how we do things, how we arrange our relationship? And Jennifer's like, yep, this would be a first for Jasmine. But she's very open to the idea. And Danielle's like, look, things felt good. They felt natural. Nothing felt forced. I hope that's the case. But she also reminds us that whoever they bring in for this potential sister wife, a lot is at stake for her. A lot. Jennifer's like, what should the next step be? And she wants to know, should Nick go on a one-on-one date? Should they all go out together? And they are clearly looking to Danielle to figure out what is the next thing. And Danielle's like, listen, I think it should be whatever Jasmine's comfortable with. Nick's super excited to meet her and just wants to make sure that everyone's comfortable. Everyone's okay with the pace that they're going. And Danielle is very aware that everyone is talking about her without saying her name. And she's like, hey, we're getting to know one another. It's a good idea to take things slow. April feels like Jasmine really could be that fourth sister wife they're looking for, but she definitely is still kind of on the fence about what Danielle wants. And she continues to press her. And she's like, hey, Danielle, we could stop now. We never have to see her again. And Danielle's like, this is so hard for me to voice my concerns because everyone is so on board. And you can tell that they're all directing all of this just to Danielle. Nobody's saying, hey, Jennifer, are you sure you're on board with her? No, it is very clear. And so for her to not have that space to just open up and be like, hey, no, I'm not okay, because everyone is making it obvious that she would be the problem in all of this, she's feeling like she can't put a stop to anything because she doesn't want to go against the grain. She doesn't want to go against everyone else. And Nick's like, I'm going to have to pay close attention to how Danielle's feeling because I don't want her to feel like she has to leave again. And they agree that they've signed off and will contact Jasmine for next steps. It will be only helpful to worry about what Danielle is feeling if you can figure out what she's actually feeling, because none of y'all seem to have an idea. I'm not sure how this is going to go. Jasmine seems like she could be a lot of fun. She seems like maybe she could fit in, but I don't know if Danielle's going to feel entirely comfortable, signing that marriage contract with her and potentially, if something goes wrong, losing 50% of her things. So we're going to hop, skip, and a jump to Pennsylvania, to the Sakahooden family. And Naeem and Nyla are having lunch with Jamila and Nyla's friend, Jahari. Jahari's a polygamist, but a little differently, they say. She's involved with both the husband and the wife, meaning she's actually polyamorous. Nyla's hoping that Jamila will be kind to her because they haven't, once again, told Jamila that she's coming. Naeem wanted her to meet Jahari so she could see things from a different perspective. And this is not going to go well. Once again, we're pushing boundaries because your mom's not going to know who this person is or what is expected of her in yet another situation. Jahari introduces herself to us and she says she met Nyla and Naeem in an online poly group. She spent time with them. They just clicked as friends, and she explains a little deeper that she is polyamorous. She's in an arrangement with a couple who are her boyfriend and her girlfriend. Everyone's happy with their arrangement. She's comfortable. She points out that it's different because unlike Nyla, she dates women also. This is not going to open Jamila's mind. I really don't feel like it is. My opinion is that Jamila is going to actually end up way more closed off than she was even before this. I think it'll make for great TV, but it's not going to make for great family dynamics. And having the previews, it looks like they actually fight. So we'll see when we get there. Nyla asks if she told Jahari that Jamila was coming. It's obvious to me that Nyla is not a fan of her mother-in-law, and I'm no stranger to difficult mother-in-laws. Mine was definitely tough on me at first, but over the years, I've actually come to value her place in our lives. While we don't always see eye to eye, we don't always agree on everything, and there are things that she does that might make me batty, I actually do appreciate the effort that she puts in with not just me, but our children. And I do appreciate how much she does love her son. I have friends who I've seen have exceptionally difficult relationships with their mother-in-law, and there's irreparable damage there. And I've seen others who have really fantastic relationships. Oh my gosh, my grandmothers were amazing women, and both of my parents would tell you that they miss those women every day because both of them went way out of their way to make sure that each of my parents felt like they were family. So I hope someday I can be as good of a woman as my grandmothers were. I think at the end of the day, it's like any other relationship, though. You get out of it what you put into it. And if one side wants to put in positivity, but one side consistently wants to be more negative, it's going to be really hard to cultivate a very healthy relationship. And it kind of feels like Jamila and Nyla never really had a great healthy one to begin with. But I also feel sort of inclined to remind us moms out there that this weird trend of choosing while your children are tiny to be a monster-in-law for your son's wife is weird, uncool, and uncomfortable, because we were all once those women, young women, joining a family, and we need to remember what it felt like and try to make these transitions as smooth as possible, even if it's difficult for you. If you raised your boys well, then we should be able to trust their choice of partner. Right? Right. So don't go out there just specifically being a monster-in-law. Advice from Cozy. So Jahari is not worried about this difference of opinion. She's not bothered by it. Nyla lies through her teeth, in my opinion, when she agrees. It is obvious that she would really like her mother-in-law to be on board with their plans. So, but Nyla's also not setting the stage very well when she's like, let's all get ready, and then Naeem's like, yeah, Godzilla's coming. There is definitely something to be said for not tainting the water. It's one thing to warn, hey, listen, she's a way different opinion, she's very outspoken. It's another to keep hammering it home so hard that Jahari already is going to have this notion about Jamila that she's this, this difficult person to be around. I mean, Jamila is definitely a tough cookie. A no-nonsense lady, which is what Jahari says she's heard about her. A very diplomatic way of putting it. And Jahari just wants to give her a different perspective about the world of polygamy to maybe help her understand Nyla and Naeem's choices. And she'd love to be able to discuss the benefits of plural relationships as she sees it. So when Naeem introduces Jahari and Jamila is trying to assess the situation, given that they've already told her that if they were to bring another woman into their life, they wouldn't be honest with her. She is very skeptical. And she's like, is this a setup? They try to reassure her, no, Jahari is just our friend. She's already involved. Like, this is not... And Jamila's like, she was about to say, because you shouldn't be doing this to me. Like, you shouldn't be just sort of tricking me into these lunch dates and whatever else. And Nyla's a little confrontational when she's like, why? What are you going to do? And Jamila's like, I'd be cordial, but I'd leave. I don't like this. I don't want this. I told you I'm not interested. And she is establishing that boundary yet again. And Nyla says, why would you leave? And Jamila's like, because I'm not interested in this, and you should have told me beforehand. But Nyla's like, Jahari's awesome. You wouldn't want to get to know her? Jamila's like, there's a lot of awesome people in this world that I choose not to be around. And I think that we're missing the point. Jamila is clearly talking about, I don't want to meet a girlfriend of yours. I don't. I'm not interested in that. Where Nyla's like, this is our friend and you don't want to hang out with her? Two very different things. This is a very negative tone right off the bat. They probably should have said that they were bringing a friend, because this blindside tactic is getting them into a lot of trouble, and it's causing difficulty, not just for them, but for Jahari too. Because now she's already set up with this expectation of, are you being honest with me? When she is. Naeem says that Jahari's in this lifestyle with a couple. And Jamila says, oh, God, because she knows what this is now. It isn't a lunch with her son and his wife. It's another way to just try and change her mind yet again. And Jahari's like, I feel like Jamila came in the door with her mind set. There's nothing anyone's going to say to change it. Right. And also, Nyla and Naeem keep pushing and trying to change her opinion in this actually sort of hostile way. I say hostile because every time we've seen them talk to her, they have threatened to blindside her. They have stepped over her boundaries. They have not necessarily understood where she's coming from. They're not exceptionally forthcoming with her in a way that damages familial relationships, but makes for great TV ratings, I guess. Jahari's really polite, and she asks, is it just the lifestyle? And Jamila's like, yeah, I don't approve of this for my son. I don't care what other people do, but not for him. Jahari's like, listen, my mom was like that too until she met my couple. And Naeem's like, how about you just explain it to her? So Jahari's like, I just want to kind of help you come up with a way to understand your son a little bit better. I'm here to give you a different point of view. She explains her dynamic, and Jamila has questions like, do y'all share the same bed? They don't live together. So while she's visiting, yes. But on the regular, no. Nyla's like, well, we intend to share a bed. And Jamila goes, whoa, if I ever spend the night, please don't do that. And Nyla says, I don't like the idea of sleeping away from Naeem. So we all need to get along and sleep in the same room. And Naeem's like, I don't know about that. We're still figuring it out. It's obvious that he's kind of uncomfortable with that plan. But this is what Nyla has in her mind, which I think is interesting. Once again, we go from that whole... We've got Jamila saying that in their culture, you would never even keep the wives in the same home. And Nyla saying, oh no, we're going to all share the same bed. So, the plot, it thickens. Jahari's trying to explain that this is less about Nyla sacrificing something just to share Naeem, and more about wanting to be better for each other. Jamila drops the bombshell. There are children involved. Up to this point, I had kind of just assumed that these two were a childless couple as they'd never mentioned children. I suppose that because they hadn't mentioned it, it hadn't been brought up. I just thought, okay, maybe they don't have kids. And it gets glossed over right away by arguing about whether or not they're trying to convince Jamila if this is just about swapping germs. But Jamila goes on to say, you guys are grown and doing this for selfish reasons. Naeem loses it and starts talking over, telling her to stop. But Nyla's like, no, I want to hear what she has to say. And Naeem's like, no, I want her to stop because she called us selfish. It might be a little bit. Anyway, Naeem says that they talk to their child, and Jamila butts in and she's like, she's only 14. And Naeem and Nyla are like, listen, she speaks her mind. She lets us know what she thinks. Jamila's like, it's my opinion that you two are being selfish, and you should think more about your child. Okay, fair enough. She says the argument is that she understands, we're more open, and then hits us with this, well, yeah, you're way more open than you should be. I was like, ooh, geez. Nyla's like, our daughter does not make decisions for us. We'll talk to her. We'll hear her out. But in the end, whatever we choose is our choice. But Jamila shoots back, it doesn't matter what I think. Because at the end of the day, you're going to do what you want. And Naeem says the dumbest thing with, you're always about the bottom line. Of course we'll do whatever we want. Why are you always about the bottom line? Bro, asked, answered. I don't know how to help you. Nyla accuses Jamila of constantly switching reasons to disapprove and that she's grasping at straws. I don't think that's the case. I actually feel like she's been relatively consistent. She doesn't like the idea of germs. She doesn't like the idea of sharing. She doesn't like the idea that children are involved. I mean, yes, it's 3 different reasons, but she's been consistent in sharing some of those reasons. And I think, honestly, the only reason she didn't share the child thing was probably because Nyla and Naeem weren't looking to have their child involved. But now she's been just sort of pushed just enough to reveal the daughter and bring her into it. And Jamila's like, go ahead, do it. Just leave Harriet out of it. And I love that name, probably because I loved Harriet the Spy as a kid, but I just think it's such a cute name. So I'm glad their daughter has an adorable name. But they ask, how are we supposed to leave her out of it? And Jamila's like, I don't know. Figure it out. You have time. Figure it out now. because this is not good for her. And Nyla's like, you're just assuming she isn't okay. You haven't even asked her. On the couch, Naeem is going to describe his daughter's relationship with her grandmother, as they don't have one. Naeem's like, listen, we know about kids. And Nyla's like, I've been a mom for 30 years. So there has to be more kids? I don't know. I actually am confused there. But she communicates with her kids. She does say kids, so I guess there is more than one. Rather, Jamila just assumes that she knows anything about them, and Nyla keeps pushing and pushing and pushing. And she finally says, who's making the ass out of themselves? Being that whole phrase about assuming. And Jamila says, now you're just being disrespectful. And Nyla's like, I'm being truthful. It is getting contentious as Nyla continues to push, wanting to know when Jamila last spoke to Harriet. And Jamila points out, you're being really disrespectful, and I want to know why it is that my son's letting this happen. It is gearing up at garlic, as they called it. I'm never one to approve of a fight in public space, but I do think that everyone has absolutely been pushed to their limits. Like, there is no coming back at this point. If Jamila doesn't have a relationship with her grandchildren, it is not fair to bring them up necessarily. If Nyla and Naeem want to include Jamila in their plans, they need to respect her boundaries. There are no winners in this situation. Everybody sort of sucks in their own way, except maybe Jahari, who really is like this third party that got drug into this completely unfairly. But Nyla says on the couch that Jamila's been extremely negative and is simply using their daughter as yet another excuse for not liking polygamy. I already went over that I think that might not be accurate. So she's like, I felt like I needed to call her out on it. They're continuing to argue about when was it that Jamila spoke to Harriet. And, like, they keep asking. And she tells us that Naeem didn't step in, didn't say anything, but she's not about to let Nyla continue to speak to her like that. Firstly, I think it's reasonable to ask about minor children in a situation like this. If you have no relationship with the child, there's a lot of factors as to why. Sometimes the grandparent is the problem. Sometimes the parents are the problem. Sometimes it's circumstances completely outside of our control. I don't know their situation. I don't need to know their situation. But making sure that a minor child is safe and protected is important both emotionally and physically. So if that really is an actual genuine concern from her, I don't think it's that big a deal to bring it up, that you have an actual genuine concern. And I think that maybe you shouldn't have brought it up this way, but clearly boundaries have been overstepped and pushed to the point where she clearly doesn't care about that anymore. But as the fight is heating up, Jamila tells Nyla, do not speak to me ever again until you apologize. But Nyla's like, I'm not apologizing. Naeem's like, whoa, you have said a lot of things to her. Do you know how many things you have to apologize for? And Jamila's like, no, I don't. They go back and forth for a minute, just yelling at each other. And finally, Jamila gets up and she starts collecting her things. Nyla's like, are you walking out the door? And Jamila's like, yeah, I am. I'm done. And then throws out, I'll probably walk over there and smack you in your effing face. Nyla jumps up at that and repeats, what do you think is going to happen when you do? Several times. Things are really getting out of control and someone needs to walk away. But Jahari is trying to stop them. She's like, you're a queen, adjust your crown, sit back down, we're not doing this, this isn't how we do things. And the manager actually has to come out to make sure no one's throwing punches, it's not getting that bad. Jamila finally throws out you're not a mother. Mothers don't act like this. Which, I mean, that's not okay. It's unfair. And then she says she was going to whoop Nyla, and that probably could have been done without, too. This relationship seems to be really broken. Nyla is correct, though. Jamila's never going to accept their relationship choice. She's just not. And she insists that it's only Naeem that's worried about his mother accepting their choices. Her only goal is to make him happy. But methinks the lady doth protest too much. Because it does feel very much like Nyla is wanting that acceptance too. They're constantly pushing at her. They're constantly trying to teach her, educate her on all of this polygamy stuff. And it is not working. And frankly, it is going about completely the wrong way. Jahari says, as she grabs one last sip of a drink, she tells us sometimes family dynamics just can't coexist. They just can't. Either the issues need to be discussed, or they may have to keep those things completely separate. Jamila and their polygamy may never be able to exist in the same sphere, and that is more than likely the case. So, The Merrifield family. The Merrifield family. We usually start the episodes off, and this one started off with them, no exception. They recount for us the judge not willing to marry Garrick and Natalia because of this lifestyle. They talk about how it's such a bittersweet day for them. Garrick's like, the wedding falling through is sad. It's so much to deal with. And it's clear there's a lot of awkward tension here. Garrick says, wedding sad, baby happy. And Danielle is trying to engage Natalia by calling it bittersweet, but Natalia's not responding. She's obviously very upset. Danielle's like, listen, I know this is a rough time for Garrick and Natalia, but we're going to a clinic together today to see the baby for the first time. And Garrick was like, I didn't expect to have another child with Danielle. And Danielle gives a little, gives this little surprise, and Natalia is still no reaction. Not at all. She's very upset. It's tense. Garrick thinks Natalia is depressed and devastated because the wedding got called off, but also they were purposefully trying to get pregnant. And she thought she was, but as it turned out, that wasn't the case. And so now it's sad, and Danielle is accidentally pregnant, and Danielle's trying to engage, but Natalia finally speaks up and says, this is a good day for Danny, but a bad day for me. I'm mentally tired, she says. And she's very upset. Garrick's like, yeah, it's sad, but I want us to be one big happy family. Danielle says that she had hoped Natalia would be pregnant because now there's this uneasy feeling in the air because of this whole situation. If it had been Natalia, then nobody would have to feel awkward about it being Danielle. I think it would help if Garrick stopped trying to have babies with every single woman he gets involved with immediately, but hey, whatever. It does make more sense now why Danielle thought that Natalia would think she did this on purpose, because even if it may have been, who knows, I can't speculate on that. If it really had been 14 years of it not happening regardless of the circumstance, I don't know how it could have been on purpose. Obviously, I'm not involved here. It is really down to the honesty of all parties involved, but I don't know. I guess it does seem quite out of the blue to me. Danielle says the beauty of plural life is being able to share these things all together, to be able to go and see the baby all together. It doesn't seem Natalia sees it that way, but I think her feelings are just really hurt. It's tough. This is a tense situation. But they head off to go see the doctor so they can see the baby. And the doctor comes out, asks in Brazilian Portuguese who the mother is, and Natalia introduces Danielle. And thankfully the doctor does speak English, so this is going to be a much easier transaction, and Natalia won't have to translate everything when she's already feeling sort of despondent. And Natalia's like, listen, this is a really special moment for Garrick and Danielle. And I'm upset because I feel like Garrick hasn't even stopped to discuss with me what's happening with this wedding situation. She's trying to adapt and learn how to deal with these new feelings and this new situation. This is a lot, especially now with Danielle and the baby, and the doctor shows them this tiny little bean who's moving around, and she's like, oh, it's about 12 weeks. Danielle's very emotional to hear the heartbeat, which is so very normal. Natalia's struggling with her feelings, though. She is obviously sad for herself, but she's trying to be happy for Danielle and Garrick. She's really trying not to ruin this moment. And Danielle says that she and Garrick are husband and wife, so she's here to support him and Natalia as well. This is the family, and even though they have struggles, they still love each other. This has got to be a strange moment. Natalia's looking at this. She's still kind of on the outside in some way, shape, or form, but she's expected to react to this is her baby in some respects. And so this can be really difficult. But they get back home, and Natalia's friends are coming over for what's intended to be this big wedding party celebration. And since that's not happening, the friends are now coming over basically to just, as Garrick says, comfort Natalia in her time of need. They all arrive, and Natalia tells us that when she first told them about this polygamous relationship, they thought she was crazy. Can you blame them? And Garrick tries speaking a little bit Portuguese, but it's definitely sort of awkward as he's not great at it. Natalia says that now that they're able to see her in this relationship, and see she's happy, that her friends can be happy for her. And one of her friends is like, how's the experience been so far? Danielle's like, it's been good. I've noticed that Danielle mostly only ever says things are good. All the time. Everything is good. When Natalia asks, how are you feeling? Good. How have things been? Good. Nothing is ever super honest. Nothing's ever a different word. Garrick's word is always sad. Everything is super sad. It's sad. It's sad. It's sad. Danielle's is good. Everything is good. All the time good. It's very strange. They each have latched onto this thing and just held on to it forever. But Garrick's like, listen, things are good but sad because we were supposed to get married today. And Natalia's explaining that since Garrick lives in the States with Danielle as husband and wife, they were turned down for a legal marriage. And she goes on to say that she had the dress, the shoes, she booked the restaurant for everybody, even had a makeup artist ready. And then they found out yesterday it's not happening. And then she had to call her entire family and be like, hey, wedding's off. They won't marry us. Natalia's friend Lorena says that the wedding didn't happen, but it's good to be around friends and to try and help her feel better about what's going on. Maybe forget a little bit of that sadness. And she shares, so Natalia shares that they went to see the baby that day, and she tried to be so excited so she wouldn't ruin this special moment between Garrick and Danielle, but it's obvious she wasn't super excited to be there. But she's definitely trying. She's upset. She's struggling. She's feeling really left out of a lot of things at this moment. And I know we've all been there, where we're trying to feel so happy for someone else, but it feels like everything is sort of falling apart for us. And so we're putting on that brave face for everybody, even though we're not really feeling it. I know that feeling very well lately. So Natalia calls out Garrick for not talking with her. Just, oh, I'm happy now. We're having a baby. We can talk later. And later just never comes. She's like, I don't know what to do. This whole thing happened. And I feel like we haven't spoken about it at all. He didn't comfort me emotionally the way that she needed. And Danielle jumps in to defend Garrick, just the way that Natalia said to her, you have to stop defending him all the time. He's an adult. He needs to take care of himself. And she's like, whoa, I felt like Garrick comforted Natalia a lot. He was emotional. He cried. Girl. The call came in. And then he let Natalia go lay down in her bed and cry and took you on a walk. And she's like, this is new for Natalia. So she needs to understand that Garrick's going to have a lot of his time divided. And Talia's like, okay. Because this is really kind of invalidating Natalia's attempt to be honest and communicate with Garrick. Hey, I needed you there for me emotionally, and you weren't. And Danielle's like, no. We have to share him. So he's not going to be able to be your emotional support human. Like, so Danielle's like, as wives, we need to understand what he's going through too. And Natalia sort of explodes just a touch, and she's like, I don't know how he's going to divide his time further with maybe 4 or 5 wives. That's a fair thing to say. But Garrick's going to get in on this. And he says the point of a plural life is the wives are sisters and friends and need to support each other. He says especially if there's 3, because 3 would be 2 not with him and 1 with him, and they can hang out with each other. And at this point, I am waiting for him to pull a Cody Brown and say, plus I need to dilute my relationship with Danielle. Like, I'm just waiting for it. And Lorena's like, do the women feel that way? And Danielle's like, I wonder if Natalia feels that way. And then this went from being a comfort Natalia while she's super sad to this weird therapy session that I wonder if it's going to end in a fight. Like, I don't know. Because Danielle's going to say she wonders if Natalia even wants to have a relationship with her. And Natalia cuts her off. And is like, this is a slow process that's built in stages. Danielle is rushing headlong into things and expecting Natalia to react in a way like they've known each other their entire lives. And so now Danielle is basically just looking at Lorena, who's translating for her, and only talking to her and crying, asking if Natalia will just open up to her more. Because she feels like since Garrick's been in Brazil, Natalia really hasn't spoken to Danielle much, and she feels shut out. And the look on Garrick's face says he's about to say something, and I wish he wouldn't. So Danielle probably should have found a better time to discuss this. This is probably an inappropriate time. But Garrick saying that she was out of control emotionally might be a step too far. I don't think this is out of control. She's upset, and for the first time, there is someone in the room who can help translate for her and help her understand and help Natalia understand her. Is the timing off? Yes. Is she out of control? Hardly. Lorena explains that Danielle is feeling that Natalia is very closed off, and that Danielle would like more communication, that they share since they share a husband and a family, and if looks could kill. The look on Natalia's face seems to be staring daggers into Danielle as she keeps talking, and it's starting to feel very tense. But Danielle's like, listen, my emotions are on the surface, and Natalia's way more reserved. And Natalia then speaks to her very politely and is like, I am just a different person with a different personality. We are not the same. It's a gradual path that we're taking to full understanding of each other. But Garrick has to butt in and share his reasons that things are hard, of course. And he's like, having both women together is hard. And he loves the sisterhood and the togetherness of living plural because it makes him a better man. If this is better, I'm worried. But then he starts getting upset that they're not on the same page. They're not together fully. Once again, the victim of his own adultery. Lorena says that she thinks the three should be a married family, but not right now. They need to work on these trust issues between the ladies, and Garrick needs to pay way more attention to both wives. She thinks Natalia has things to learn, but she's confident that she can learn them. Lorena, for her part, has been able to translate very clearly and not insert any jabs or quips that actually aren't there. I commend her for being able to be so open. Natalia says, I don't believe that we're in conflict right now. Things are a work in process. It's gonna get better. The explosive fight that I thought was coming isn't. Everyone's hugs and smiles, and Danielle's like, I know it's gonna take work on my part, but to us, she says she doesn't really believe that Natalia understands what it takes to be a sister wife. That she sees this very monogamous mindset coming from her. And Danielle knows that when she and Garrick made the decision to become plural, that there was an adjustment. And this feels like a little bit of projection. With the communication so stunted, I can see why she would feel that way. Things are off, but I think the root of the problem definitely is Danielle and Garrick. Not so much Danielle and Natalia. Danielle's struggling with being pregnant and feeling like Garrick has sort of pulled away from her and tossed her aside for the shiny new thing. And Natalia is definitely an easy excuse for why things are the way that they are. I also imagine that Natalia is feeling like she's in the middle of these two, and that can't be a comfortable feeling, especially when you don't always understand what's being said around you. Danielle's like, I feel like this was a step in the right direction, and I can understand my sister wife better. So she wants to help her open up and engage with her in a different way that feels, I don't know, feels a little strange. Honestly, nothing was really said other than Natalia has a different personality from Danielle, so I don't know. This is sort of feeling very Robin and Christine Brown right now. Like the, why won't you open up to me? I thought I was conversation. I'm getting those vibes off of them. Plus the added language barrier and the pregnancy hormones all add up to this just being a disaster. And I really hope for everyone's sake they either work it out or call it quits, because this is getting out of control. But they head out for a beach walk for Garrick's birthday and their final day in Rio. And he is still lamenting the wedding being called off. I know it's recent for them, but geez, oh Pete. 1 second, and just try to make the best of this, please. He says that it's a bittersweet time because saying goodbye to Natalia is really difficult. And she knows that the day before was emotional, but wants to know how Danielle's feeling right now. And Danielle says, I'm feeling better. I think I can understand your feelings a lot better. I think I understand you better. Natalia thinks that this baby is going to help unite all of them and help them grow as a family. They all agree. And Natalia shares with us that it's complicated. This was a complicated night. And she's happy that they were able to work some things out. But she's sad because she doesn't know when she's going to see them again. And this long-distance relationship thing is very new for her, especially being in a plural relationship in long distance. It's hard. But they're all hoping the K1 visa is going to come through. Because Garrick says this is really our only option. We were unable to legally marry in Brazil. And so this trip's been a roller coaster. And nothing worked out the way that he thought it was. He is so happy that things are ending well. And that Danielle and Natalia seem to be really clicking and growing as sisters now. Danielle's like, this has been a doozy of a trip. But I'm ready to move forward in my relationship with Natalia. Making sure that she's not shutting down, because when you are so upset, it is so easy to just shut down and not let other people in. I know that. I do it all the time. I don't mean to, but it's one of those personality quirks that it happens, and you do have to learn how to let other people in. But she's looking forward to going home to be with the boys and be with Garrick. So who's thinking monogamously now, Danielle? Just out of curiosity. Garrick's like, hey, can I stay with Natalia for the last night? And Danielle's like, yeah, sure, of course, go ahead. And Garrick's like, so next step, call the lawyer, plan a trip for the boys and the family so they can all get back together with Natalia. It could be up to 2 months before they see her again, which in all reality, I know it's a long time, but it's not a long time. Natalia's super happy to have had them here and resolve some of these loose ends. And she is looking forward to good times and being a tighter family. So that was this week, which was a little odd because we only saw 3 of the families. We didn't see the Sherwoods, I don't believe, and we didn't see the Ryans. So I'm assuming that the Ryans probably don't have a ton right now. I know that they met Yari, and hopefully we're going to get to see a little bit more of that soon. I don't know what's going to happen, but this was an interesting one. I enjoyed it. It does seem like we are getting to a little bit more of explosive points with different people. I think the Davises are kind of coming to a point where somebody's going to have to say something and be honest about something at some point, because things are going to get out of hand really quickly. Obviously, the Sakahooden family, I don't know what they're going to do. I'm worried that they've done irreparable damage to whatever relationship that Naeem and his mother have, but honestly, he barely seems to like her, so I'm really not sure what's going on there. And then, of course, the Merrifields, I don't know. I would love to be optimistic. I just don't see this working out. I think that at some point Natalia's going to say, you know what, I can't do this, I'm done. And that's going to be that. So, that's where we are with episode 10. I have episode 11 sort of in the tank, ready. I guess I didn't have as much about stuff that Husband said in this one, but I definitely have a bunch of things that Husband said in episode 11, because, like, he had a lot of feelings and thoughts. And not all of them were super kind. So you'll just have to look forward to that. I promise that I will do my best to keep everything as positive as I can, because, you know, you don't want to come here for my husband's negative reactions to everything. Oh, thank you. I'm done, and now you want to... Worst co-host ever. But we love him. So, that's all I have for you for episode 10 of Seeking Sister Wife. We will hop right back into it with episode 11 here shortly, because it was very interesting. Honestly, it was a very interesting episode, and I'd love to talk about it. So, let's get back to it. I will see you guys soon. Bye, guys!